All right, y'all, we're back. Thanks so much for holding it down for us. As promised, we're here to deliver some really big information that y'all should take notes on. We have attorney Stephanie Hay in the building. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I'm mad excited. Like I said, you see me ready, right? I'm
You
just
ready,
saying.
girl. You
So
ready.
for y'all that don't know, she is on a serious mission to empower people who have creative minds and an entrepreneurship spirit. You guys, she has a primary office here in Houston.
Yes.
And you're also licensed in
Georgia, yes.
No Games.
Yes.
So let's get started on how you got started. Like, what made you get into law and entertainment law at that?
So I left Atlanta and went to Howard University, going in with a communications degree. When I came out of school, that's when I guess you call it the depression, or when the economy was declining. So I had to make a decision, like, okay, am I gonna go out here and just work, or am I going to attempt to wait it out somewhere? And I was like, let's do that. I felt like I could get some protection still being in school until the economy bounced back.
Okay.
So that was really the plan.
That's
It
smart.
wasn't because I was a kid that dreamt of being an attorney. I watched Law and Order. That's just genuinely not who I am. My aunt was like, I had a little sassy mouth. I could, I'm always down for telling somebody or debating something. So I was like, oh, okay, I'll do law. And really, because I guess genuinely, like, creatives, you don't want to be pigeonholed to one thing. And I feel like if I got a master's, that's what it would do, because you kind of got to pick exactly what you want your master's. Law, the beauty in law is that you're able to practice and do in any industry. So it still gave me that flexibility to decide, like, okay, so what is it that I want to do? And I knew I love communication. So I went to law school, and coming out, it started just pulling me. Like, I was like, okay.
The entertainment
side just started really being a point of interest. Everything else seemed boring. It was drab. I just really was not into it. And I knew that if I was going to have a career and I was going to practice, it needed to be something that I could do and enjoy.
Yeah, you gotta like it.
Because, I mean, there are attorneys out here that's practicing, they're like 70 years old. When I got my law degree, when I graduated law school and passed the bar, I was 25. I thought, okay, so by the time I'm 50, I will have practiced for 25 years.
Wow.
And in the grand scheme of things, at 50,
That's
you're not old.
impressive. Not at all.
So I'm like,
Yeah.
so I can't do something that I just am going to be like, oh, this is whack. And so that was honestly what the motivation was, to say, okay, so this is what I'm going to do, and this is what I love. Now, the process I need to get there has been one for God, but
you felt that calling. You felt yourself being pulled in the first place, so to just trust the journey from the beginning. Yeah. I really like that. You already have like a strong vibe, a strong and determined energy to you that I'm already feeling it from here. So you're also the owner and principal attorney of the Hay Law Group.
Yes.
And y'all have the pleasure of representing entertainers, people in film.
Yes.
Go ahead and let us know your umbrella real quick.
So I started to practice here in Houston, primarily because I felt like there was a missing link. Like I said, I'm from Atlanta, so jumping into that, I guess what we consider a bigger pond, was an option, but I always felt like there was something here to build, and that this was that, abandoned stone that really just needed to kind of be dust off and say, okay, let's see what is here and how we can be of service.
You see the diamond in
Yeah,
the
diamond.
Right.
Yeah.
There is something here. I always like, this reminds me of an older Atlanta. Houston can be a little slow sometimes, but I do feel like it has some potential. So because of that, I started to practice here, and really just working with independent artists, independent filmmakers, producers, individuals starting businesses, individuals that needed trademark. All of that kind of came under the entertainment umbrella.
There's a lot to it.
Right. And so in that is really where the inspiration came, to say, okay, I'm going to get out here. And once again, just another God moment of feeling like, there is no entertainment job here. I'm not going to find and be able to apply to a 9-to-5 and work as an entertainment lawyer, let's say at a record label, as if I was in New York or someplace like that. So if you're going to do this, not only are you doing it in a foreign land, you're going to start a business and start advertising that you're doing entertainment law in, once again, a place that's not known to be entertainment. You're crazy.
So what kept you on the side of the entertainment law of helping the artists instead of going to like the industry leaders, the record labels, and working as a record exec or A&R or something like that?
That is a good question. I was just having this conversation with somebody the other day because sometimes I feel like the artist, you can be abused, but it is about, I think for me, it's the foundation. Like, I want them to understand. We've all heard the horror stories of I got taken advantage of. I didn't know.
All the time.
All of that stuff. But I realized it was about helping set that foundation. Something about that had me set and saying, okay, yes, I can go work for the bad person that's going to take your publishing. I can do that, or I can assist you and empower you to understand what they're doing and realize that this is a business. Because one thing about this business that's unique about any other industry that you work in is that you don't have to have not a lick of education to join the business, to say I'm an entertainer. But everybody who is controlling the dollar in which your intellectual property helped to manifest has some type of business education. I have 2 degrees in order to say that I'm an entertainment attorney, and the person I represent has not one, but he is the one that pays essentially through the cycle or ecosystem. He is the one that's paying my bills, and that's crazy.
That is crazy.
But you don't, and then you don't empower yourself and learn the business until after the fact. And so we can get into my spiel of my preaching box about how I feel about that. But essentially that's why, because I felt like you can be so talented but so uneducated, and at the end of the day the person that will always eat, let's just use myself, is me. And more so because I'm the one with the education, so somebody has to teach you to be better than that.
But I think the problem is because he kind of hit it on the head, was other establishments, record labels, book publishers, they have their own lawyer.
Yes.
They're not representing you.
No. And that's
You know
another
what I'm saying?
thing that's not understood.
But they're like, oh, if I get signed to this person, then that's my lawyer too. But no.
No. And that has, those waters in the world of independence, especially independence, have become very, very blurred. Those lines have become very blurred. Whereas if you're working, now the labels are getting very particular. They'll say, send me your attorney's information, because it takes some of that liability off of them for you when you do come back as the artist and say, well, I didn't have representation in that deal. They didn't tell me I needed an attorney. So the majors are saying, no, who's your attorney? Let me send this to your team or whoever that person may be. But when you're dealing with the independents, oftentimes that's where it gets blurry, because you have the independent label who's signing this artist who I have to always say, I feel like the artist starts to depend on me to tell them how the contract is supposed to work, and I have to oftentimes back out or make it very clear that I was hired by the independent label to present the agreement to you. So do you have representation? I can explain the basics, but I can't negotiate on both sides of the
break it
deal.
down, right.
Wasn't there was some attorneys
like
at
that
one
in-
point was negotiating like that, huh?
Yeah, so you can do like a conflict waiver, basically, where you
It doesn't
say
feel like a conflict of interest.
right, but that becomes oftentimes a conflict of interest. And there was an issue, I believe, with, I think Cardi B was involved, and this was a couple of years back, right when she kind of first hit, and they had some contract issues because some of the agreements she signed in the beginning, she did not have representation. And so she was coming back saying, well,
I could see that.
This agreement is void. And it's kind of like,
So for some artists out there, if you're signing to a label and you don't have representation, there's something that you can put into play to where it can kind of void that contract in a way, or not necessarily?
Not necessarily, because at the end of the day, as long as you are over the age of 18, because then you can get into now why contracts can be void if you are underage and you sign without an attorney. Like now, those contracts have been void. But if you are of age, you can enter into an agreement, because at the end of the day, you can read. Now, can you understand what you're reading? That may be a little bit different, but the court may be a little bit more hesitant to allow you to get out of the contract just because you didn't have representation, because at the end of the day, we are all of free will.
That's right. And that's what makes it independent. And that's crazy, because like you go from being independent to, okay, now you tell me what you want me to do and you tell me what to do. And it's like, no, this is your business.
Right.
I'm still here to help you with that. Let me ask you this. What is one of the most common things artists make that mistake on? And what should they do before they even come approach you?
Okay, so what do you mean? What's the most what mistake?
When it comes to trying to establish their business without an attorney, I guess. And I know it's crazy because the answer is to talk to you. But at the same time, like there's things that I feel like maybe they could be doing before they come to you, so that when they are approaching you, that they already have some foundations already set. Did that make sense? I hope so.
So what steps should they have in place before they actually approach her?
Yeah. Like, what are you expecting them to already have done?
I'm not necessarily expecting them to already have anything done per se. What I am expecting them is to be vested in more than just the music, more than just the film that they are producing. I want to see that you are taking an interest to handle your business. Because if I'm going to be a team member, I want to make sure that we have fluid communication, and that if I'm saying something, that you understand what I'm saying. And then if you don't, you just say, okay, Stephanie, let's start over. Let's try again. What exactly are my steps? What do we need to do? And not completely solely dependent upon me. Yes, it is my job to understand it on a deeper level. But I also want to make sure that you are starting to learn as well, because I don't want a dependent uneducated artist that I represent. I want you to feel empowered. I want you to walk in the room and be able to come back to me and say, Stephanie, they said this, and this, and you told me like, that's a negative.
Right.
Like being able to do
Own
those,
it.
right, having some form of ownership, being able to do that. Those are the things that, to me, I want us to be able to be better about. Just being able to handle some of the basics and having fluid conversation and sounding informed.
I like that. I mean, I have to
Gotta
say
be
I'm very
informed.
impressed, because there's not a lot of attorneys that say, I want to teach you, I want to educate you as well as represent you. Most attorneys all do the job, and then that's pretty much it. But I love that about you. That's
So out of the record labels, the music publishers, and film, what's your favorite?
When I started, I'll be honest, I was like, I only want to do television and film. I love TV. It's something about I specifically love scripted TV. I specifically love, like, you know, a good movie. I'm not big into reality, so I love those things. So I originally started off like really saying I only want to do that. But music, you start to realize, plays a bigger role in the grand
films.
scheme,
Yeah, they do.
in a grand scheme of things. So it started to kind of pull to be like, okay, let me really start to dive into this music, because if I can become more than just, because you have some attorneys that just do music, you have some that just do film. If I can be able to tackle both, then I can be an asset. And I started realizing the importance of the music in the films and the television shows and things of that nature. So with that being said, my initial heart has always been in television and film.
Okay.
But my mistress is music.
I liked how you said that.
So do you offer the services of doing the synchronization license or shopping movies to different distributors, or getting placements as far as song placements? Do you offer those services as well, or?
I do not offer shopping services. And the primary reason is because, to me, the lines can get blurred in your level of professionalism. I have a license and I value that license. I work hard for that license, and I want to make sure that everything I'm doing is always above board, and that the reason you're coming to me is not because I can guarantee that, you know, Warner Brothers is going to pick up your film or you're going to get signed or something to that effect. I always want to stick to making sure the business is properly handled. Dabbling on the other side of then trying to sell you as an artist or sell whatever your product is takes away from, to me, the value in what, as attorneys, what we're doing. Now, there are attorneys definitely that are shopping music and shopping productions and things like that, but for me, I just feel like the lines get blurred, money's owed gets blurred, and, you know, what services you were provided. And so for me, I just like to stick to just the basics. Let's get to this agreement.
Sound like me, right? I stay in my lane too.
Right, like
This is what
I'm
I
big
like,
and stay
what
in
I
my
don't
lane,
like.
right? Just
I'm
stay in
good
your
at
lane.
that. No confusions or anything
Right.
like that.
Right.
Do you feel that maybe some people don't realize the situations when they would need an attorney? Because everybody's starting to get now into knowing that music and film is all business. It's not just fun. It's not just look at me, listen to me. It's way more than that. And there may be certain circumstances where they just may not consider. So like, what would a film producer reach out to you for versus somebody on wanting to work on an independent record label?
So if you are doing film production, then what you're really looking at is first all of your agreements. So what are your talent agreements, crew agreements, location agreements, production producer agreement. So if you're bringing in, you have some investors who want to be executive producers. What are those? Your director agreement. So a lot of your employment contracts around the film, and then after we get to post-production, then how are we shopping the film? What's the distribution agreement going to look like if, for instance, you get picked up by Netflix or some of your other smaller streaming services? That agreement as well is going to be important. Ownership rights. Let's talk about your copyrights at first.
Right.
So I would say, let's jump back. Copyrights, in my opinion, for your television and film is going to be very important, because who owns the rights to the screenplay? Did you buy the rights to a book? So do we have those rights? Do you have, imaging rights for this personality? Let's say, you're going to tell the story of, let's say, Madam C.J. Walker or something. Does she have an estate, and do you have the rights to do that? Because you have to purchase those rights. So in the beginning, some of that is just plain old copyright stuff, just to make sure you have those agreements in place to be able to tell the story.
So that's a huge thing. I mean, I don't think independent artists actually realize a lot of the things you just said. Like, it's important to get your attorney when you're thinking about it before you even start.
Most definitely. I think I was telling somebody earlier, we look at attorneys as fixers and not as problem solvers, or we're not proactive with the attorneys to say, okay, let's start at a foundation and say, okay, what do we need in the beginning? Because if we make sure we address it now, we won't have to address it later, and we won't be in an argument or litigation about something that we didn't talk about. I think we talked about the marketing around attorneys is that we will solve your problems once you get into trouble. But we are problem solvers at the beginning, and that's honestly what I want to be. So if you're talking about a stress reliever, right? If you're talking about an independent record label, you got the label agreements between the artist and the label. Is a label doing publishing? Are you giving them publishing? Do you have it, some type of administration set up? Those things. What about the copyrights to the song? Do you have producer agreements? You got split sheets. All of those things play a part, but we're just so pressed to get the music out that we start backdooring once it starts picking up traction. And oftentimes, you worked with a producer that now wants, the sun, moon, and stars, and they may have only wanted, a star had you done the agreement in the beginning, because they didn't think the song was going anywhere.
You made a valid point. When a lot of people think of attorneys, it's only when they're in trouble or when things are too late. But, if you really care about your craft and what you're doing, you're going to want to make sure that you go through the steps so you don't have to backtrack. Like, that's the worst thing to do, is to have to go back once that momentum is going. Yeah.
And it will cost you more money. Yeah.
Money, time, energy.
So you also have something going on called Quick Question Fridays.
Yes.
How did that get started?
It got started because people would be like, okay, so I just had this quick question. I'll get phone calls, and it's something relatively simple, or that really is becomes a quick answer question that I'm not going to charge you, because I'm not that petty, so
basic
I'm going
knowledge,
just some basic knowledge. And I realized it was a lot of misconception things that I see on Instagram, people talking who are claiming they're, music somebody's of, marketing or what have you. And it was just kind of like, I didn't see any attorneys out there putting content out either that was speaking to the artist. And I understand the struggle of, you don't always have money to speak to an attorney, but everything isn't about the money per se. Now, granted, I got to pay my bills, but I also feel like for what I put out there, God will return a favor.
Right.
So in that same sense, I started really feeling like, okay, let me start something that at least will give independent artists, independent creators a platform to say, hey, I got this question and I think it's simple, but I'm just not quite sure. And so in that, that was really the birth of Quick Question Friday.
So do you let them just submit questions once a week?
That's what I was gonna ask.
Like, how do we know to get down? Like,
so literally it is, put your question in the comments. Some people are shy, so they don't want people to know their question. So either you're going to put it in the comments, you can send it to me in the DM. I'll check my DMs. Y'all know on Instagram, it's like 3 different mailboxes now.
What?
So it's like it's a lot. Anyway,
if you're following them, if you're not following them, all this extra stuff.
So you can send in the messages, and I try to make sure at least twice a week I go through there and look through the messages and see like who sent me a question or what have you. And that's really how I started to build the question bank, and I decide like, okay, this is the question calendar for the month or what have you, and that's really how it is.
That's what sets you apart a little bit to me. Well, a lot of it to me is that you're talking directly to the people. You're talking to the people you're wanting this service, and oftentimes, in our community, if you don't come to me, I ain't gonna come talk to you.
Yeah, I didn't want to
So for you to open yourself out there for everybody to know and ask, it really shows that you have a sincerity.
And I got a lot of backlash for that, honestly. Like,
really?
where
Like,
attorneys were kind of like, I was giving it away for free. And I'm like, but y'all, it's like simple stuff. And at this phase, in our phase in life with technology, Google, if you know which answer is right on Google, Google does have the answer, but it has a lot of wrong answers. So you got to filter through the wrong answers to get to the right answer. So it's not like the information is not out there, but it is that whole thing of where is your value if I'm giving it away. But like I said earlier, I walk by faith, and I just believe that if I'm going to give you something, that there will be eventually a return on your investment, because you will remember, like, hey, when I had nothing, at least I knew I could get a good word from Stephanie.
Let me get your take on this, because you said something about Google. The right answers are out there. What do you think about all the internet contracts, the internet record label contracts or producer agreements?
Okay, I hate those.
You can't.
I absolutely hate those. And the reason I hate them is because you can use them, but if you don't know which clause is related to the next clause, it becomes very confusing. I've had agreements where sometimes they'll send the contract to me. So a client will say, hey, they sent me this agreement, and they'll send it to me, and I look at it and I'm like, okay, clearly it was copied and pasted from a couple of different contracts, and they thought they pulled something together, but it doesn't quite make sense, because you have to have that foundation of knowing what a controlled composition clause is, or what the difference between the master copyright is versus the publishing copyright, those things. And so you can easily tell in that, and I think just from a basic knowledge, that's when it's like, okay, y'all, let me be the attorney, I got this. I want you to have a basic understanding, but that's when you get into a deeper level, and oftentimes those contracts are generic and do not speak to your specific need, because yes, I have template contracts that I start off on the base, but the reason I have a consultation with you is because I need to sit down and see specifically what do you need, because the last client I used this for didn't need what you needed, or they were talking about something different. They structured their agreement different.
Like you treat everybody accordingly to what their own business is, instead of cookie cutter for everybody, getting the same thing. I also want to just tap in, because you've been acknowledged by a lot of prestigious organizations and schools. You've been spotlighted in the State Bar of Texas Entertainment and Sports Law newsletter. She's also been featured on the Music Business Dreams podcast and Amazing 102.5 FM. You guys, and now the Faith and Hustle show.
Hey.
What is your ultimate mission that you want to tell people when they're just listening in? If they wanted to know about Attorney Hay, what is it?
To know about me is to know that I'm passionate about your craft as you are. And
that's fair.
I want you to be more than just the creative element. I want you to have ownership, and I want you to build an empire around whatever it is that you are creating. And understanding that this is a business, and sometimes you will get in bed, you will sign some type of deal, and not every deal is a bad deal. I think not everything when it comes to publishing is bad. It's just understanding that. And I want us to really be able to have those fluid conversations, because artists get emotional about their work. But you are doing yourself a disservice if you are getting emotional and you don't understand the business, because oftentimes what happened was you screwed yourself in the deal.
Yeah, you did it yourself.
And now you are upset about it. And we all make mistakes,
it's not on you, though.
But sometimes you got to swallow the mistake and move on, because it just so happened that was a bad deal.
When it comes to trademarking, because you mentioned trademarking, a lot of people want to trademark clothes, brands. I'm currently but I'm in the midst of trademarking something, and I've been having such a hard time. I know you can look up things beforehand, but when it comes to it, what's the main difference between needing a trademark and a copyright?
Question. So a trademark is the protection of literary works, basically. The copyright, I'm sorry. The copyright is a protection of literary works. So that comes down to where we talked about being able to being able to copyright your screenplay for your film, or being able to copyright your song.
Okay.
Versus a trademark is the protection of your good and or service. So for instance, if you were trademarking Faith and Hustle as a radio show, you are providing a service, versus if you created a clothing line that you want to call Faith and Hustle, you are protecting the good, as in a sweatshirt or a t-shirt. So as an artist, let's say, you can have multiple trademarks and things that you are going to copyright. So as an artist, you may trademark your name, your stage name, because as that stage name, you go out on stage and you provide a service to us, the paying customer. Versus you are going to copyright the song that you create with your, songwriting partner, because y'all have created a literary work.
And then patent goes in there somewhere. I'm not necessarily.
Yes. So the patent all falls under the general intellectual property umbrella, and under that umbrella you have copyright, trademark, and patent law. Okay. Patent law is the engineering side of it. So for instance, the inventions, a creation of something that may work with the microphone.
That makes sense. I think one of the biggest things that gets stolen today is intellectual property. A lot of people are like, oh, I don't want to tell nobody because they're going to steal my idea, or I don't want to give this idea because I'm working on a poor man's trademark. Can we talk about that real quick? Because I don't want to put my business out there, because this is for the people. But, I was suggested to just write a letter, and I was like, no.
Or to make copies of the material and mail it to yourself, and the poor man copyright.
Y'all do not do a poor man's copyright. No, the copyright is $35. $35. You put $35 in your gas tank.
Right.
You pay $200 for some J's. So if you cannot spend $35 on a copyright, and you decide to put that 35-cent stamp on there and mail it to yourself, then I don't understand how you want to be a creative entrepreneur, entertainer. That just doesn't make sense. So no poor man copyright. Just copyright the stuff. There is no such thing. So when you are copywriting something, guys, you cannot copyright an idea. Your idea is not copyrightable, i.e. why we can have a gazillion songs about the idea of love, simply because everybody has a different expression of the idea of love. So I cannot copyright the idea of love, but what I can copyright is my own personal expression of said idea about love. And so with that, knowing that if you come up with this grandiose idea, that's great, but then you have to dive deeper and tell me what about that idea is going to be protectable under intellectual property. What trademarks are you trying to get under that idea? And what copyrights can we protect under that idea? There's tons of movies about love, but the idea of love can always be re-copywritten, because somebody will write a new script simply about love itself. So always remembering that ideas in themselves are not copyrightable. You can't necessarily trademark them. All you're doing is you came up with a good idea, and now you have to, the expression of your idea is where you're going to find your intellectual property rights.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense right there. And I feel like people try to own ideas all the time that really always change. So you can't own that.
You can't own the idea, because if you wanted to own the idea, McDonald's would have owned the idea of a fast food hamburger, and we would have nothing but McDonald's. You can clearly that, you know what I'm saying, that didn't work. They created it. If everybody's seen the McDonald's documentary, which I highly recommend, he was a savage. But they would have taken that fast food hamburger idea, protected it however they would have, and they would have been the only monopoly of fast food hamburger chains. Well, no, you can't do that. Yeah. They have, patents and trademarks and of things for, secret sauces, or, the names of their actual burgers. But no, we have another, Whataburger would have never existed. Burger King, all those places would have never existed if you could copyright or trademark an idea.
Now, what about the ingredients? Because that's another huge thing. You might use lettuce, tomato, and pickles. Can you copyright something in a conglomerate as a group, or you can't do that?
You can't necessarily do that. What you're doing is, for instance, a recipe. If the recipe is unique to you, then yes, you copyright your recipe.
Okay.
So those things are copyrighted.
I want to know, because you are dual state, if that's the word for it. What's the main difference that you find with the artists from Atlanta or Georgia versus Texas entertainment people?
Business or
Like just the mindset on the grind, on the way, the things they approach you on.
okay, so the difference between the artists here in Houston versus the artists in Atlanta. I love you both. Let me put the disclaimer out there now.
Right. No shade.
No shade. There is a different sense of camaraderie that exists in Atlanta. With each other's artists. It's one artist pulling another up. The networking is a lot deeper. It's bigger.
I hear that.
I will say there are more opportunities to network. There are more events going on for you to do that. But it is not a sense of there's no way to make it. It is almost that, to me, what you call that manifestation, that he was my homeboy, and last year we were just sitting here, on the couch smoking weed, and now he's made it. So if he can make it, I know I can make it.
Right.
You can visualize it. Versus, to me, here in Houston, because it's not a lot of artists that are coming out, we seem to recycle the same names, and y'all know who those artists are. There are no new artists coming out that simply just made it from coming out of Houston. They have to leave Houston, go to LA or whatever, and then they come back and they may claim the city, but it wasn't something that organically happened here. They end up, once they pop, and it's like now Houston claims them. That's a problem.
I hear that a lot.
That's a problem.
I hate to say it, I love the city, but I think Houston has a trust complex. I really think that's what it is.
Like that, but I could give you that.
It's a trust complex. Because we don't want to listen to, even though there's somebody in Houston that might be doing the same thing, we don't want to listen to them until, like you said, they go out the city and then they come back. Then, now you know what you're talking about. And there's a lot of people here, like, you're one of the individuals in Houston, and it's like, you're people should be lined up. I don't even understand.
I feel like with us, having her on the show, we have a lot of questions from artists all the time. And I tell you, like, if I don't know the answer, I'll tell you I don't know, and I'll go find the person or be the resource.
Yep.
So everybody who's tuning in to today's show, we never even asked you for your Instagram. Y'all definitely need to support her. Tag us and let her know, like, hey, I heard y'all on the Faith and Hustle show.
My IG is The Entertainment Attorney, spelled all the way out. Twitter is The ENT Attorney. And yeah, those are my two socials, IG and Twitter. But I'm really big and more probably interactive on IG, so definitely follow me on IG.
So besides representing artists and entrepreneurs, and not just, I feel like you represent the creative minds, but the ones that don't know how to be business people yet. You know what I mean? And I think that's a beautiful thing. It's like, not only are you representing, but you're kind of like in a mentorship with them.
Yes.
But they can also maybe take one of your classes and get some other knowledge from them. You're a professor at the music business department at HCC.
Yes, I am.
Tell us about that.
That is, to me, the city's hidden gem. HCC has had a music business program for at least 10 years. And when I first started, it was not on a downswing, but it needed to be invigorated. So me and the other professor, shout out to Chris Williams, really got into the program and started infusing some new blood and new energy. And the program is growing by leaps and bounds. And so we're really excited. But yes, for teaching purposes, definitely come see me at HTC. I teach there typically Mondays and Wednesdays in their survey and music business course. We have a music publishing course. There's a record industry course. There's a music marketing and management course, a live venue course. I mean, there are a lot of great opportunities. They have a audio production program. So there are a lot of things, if you are really interested in just trying to learn the foundation of the business, that we offer at HCC.
And that's a lot of hidden gems. And is it only just the location you're at, or which locations offer those classes?
So Spring Branch is where I've been primarily the last 2 years. I've been there 4 years now. But Spring Branch and then Central Downtown, and they just built a real beautiful facility over on the A-Leaf campus, and so they are trying to bring some classes over to the A-Leaf campus as well.
Wow. So you also are you're a chair of at least 15 of the most influential music business professionals in the city. Can we look forward to some other events? Like, what do you have going on in the near future that we can come check you and the Element out at?
So through the music advisory board, we basically are doing panel events where we're bringing in individuals in the business to talk to the students. We're looking to make that a public event as well. So the last one actually was a public event, and it'll allow people to come in and hear from music industry executives and people who are really working to really say, once again, I believe in the manifestation. If you can see it, you can believe it. So really saying, okay, hey, it is out there to do, because there are not a lot of individuals in the city doing it doesn't mean it's not possible. And so through there, I'm also just through my own business, the Hey Law Group, starting to, by end of year, fingers crossed, I've been talking about this for a while, do some seminars, some one-on-one seminars. So for those who are like, I don't want to go to school route, I don't want to have to enroll in the HCC, do that sort of thing, really start doing some intimate conversations and seminars to empower the artists, and let's talk about some topics. What do y'all want to hear? Whether it's starting, what do I need to do just to basically start a record label, or what is publishing? Just doing some one-off courses so you don't have to feel like I'm in school per se. But I can go over here and listen to Attorney Hay talk about publishing for an hour and a half or whatever, ask some questions, pay my little fee, and we all go about our business.
You know about everybody on all levels, from Quick Question Friday to just checking you out on Instagram to, you having a law firm, to being an educator in business, to now, doing things in the community. There's no real reason why you don't know, if you're listening, if there's no real reason why you can't be successful or why you can't just reach out and ask, because you make yourself available.
I don't like to be not available.
And so if you're a student, are you currently looking for any interns or anybody just to want to come and volunteer, just to get involved with you, just to learn from you up under your umbrella? Or
at one point, yes. As I go through a restructure in 2020 to see, like, okay, so what's our next elevation of just the practice and the business? So really bringing in the seminars. We're also going to start doing what I call like a in the news segment. So I've had people reach out to say, hey, what about, let's say, the Cardi B situation, or what about this that happened in the news? Did you see what May said about Diddy? What does that, kind of what does that mean?
That $20,000,
honey.
Lord,
right? That could be a whole moment. So yes, so doing something that also reaches back to start to say, okay, let's dive deeper into what happened between these individuals and what the situation is, like the Taylor Swift situation. Why is she so upset and what happened? Let's start digging into that on the business side of things. So doing it in the news segment. So yes, I will be looking into bringing in some people to help with those things, because it's quite look, I'm sure y'all know the social media, the content creation, all that stuff can be a lot. So
yes,
it is a lot. You also are reading that you have volunteer opportunities, community leadership roles, and my best advice for y'all is just to follow her social media, because you're active on there. You're not one of those attorneys who I've looked at and they haven't posted since January of last year. You're very relevant. You stay on top, and the situations that the celebrities go through are kind of common. You kind of hear them over and over again. And if we have you breaking it down to where we can understand, it can help prevent, back to preventative maintenance, saving time.
Yes, saving and money.
To go through all that again.
It's saving time and money. You don't want to pay the big ticket on the back side of things, but you got to pay a ticket there's an admittance ticket here. So,
Period.
okay, how are you, you got to pay to play. So what are we going to do? Are we going to, start now in doing, I offer subscription services and packages where, let's say you want to be put on a plan where you do $150 a month or $200 a month. So then you start banking time. So in banking that time, when you do need me, you already have started kind of banking that time because eventually it's going to be there. Or flat fee services that I offer for contracts that sometimes it'll be 3 pages. So there's flat fee services on my website. Y'all can visit heylawgroup.com under packages, and I have flat fee services. So I try to make sure I reach out to all levels of how busy you are, so you can at least be able to say there's a resource. In this new age of, I feel like millennial attorneys, I think we all have grown up thinking the attorneys all have on these suits and ties and we're very inaccessible, as you mentioned.
Yeah.
See, right? I got on J's.
You still look good. Though.
Right.
You're branding yourself though. Yes.
Right, and I got on J's. Right, no, because I don't necessarily subscribe to what the traditional sense of the attorney is supposed to be. You need me to be smart and on my game, but you don't necessarily need me to be in a suit in order to do that, because people feel more relaxed and comfortable when you are accessible and you can be relatable. And so with that, that's why we do that. But the services are there, so I really try to meet everybody's need and not subscribe to me what the traditional attorneys, those that I have learned from, have done. It's time for us to reinvent the game. You creatives move like lightning, and so we have to keep up.
That's true.
It's like your services are so affordable. Like you said, $150 a month on some things.
Right. So you can do. So my consultations are $175. That's for an hour, and you kind of pick whatever it is that you're specifically talking about, or if you just want some just general business advice. And then from there, once I kind of figure out, okay, so this is where you are. Maybe right now you don't need anything, and so let's say moving forward, if you want to do just a monthly, hourly call, we can set up a package for that. Once again, I try to really evaluate what it is that you have going on and determine what's the best thing for you. So some people just do that. Some people just start creating a bank where it says, okay, I can do $150 a month or $250 a month. And once you get to a certain level, then it'll include certain services of, I just need a phone call this month just to make sure I'm doing what I need to do. Or now I have a thing, and how much money do I have in my bank? So those things are where we're at. And I say, like I said, restructure and really trying to break the mold of what we would traditionally think attorneys are. Because that's one of the biggest things I hear is the expense. Like, attorneys are expensive, and so that's why people are not right. They're not even having a conversation with us, and I'm like, yes and no. We understand, especially as entertainment lawyers, every artist is at a different level. So I can meet you where you are, but you have to communicate to me where that is, and let's see what it is I can do. Because as the biggest to me element in the field is, build your team. Well, I don't want you to build a team and then I haven't been there, because I want to be there at the onset. Because if not, then as soon as you hit, you're going and you're getting the biggest, baddest attorney, and you have no idea who this man is.
Right. But
you
that suit and the tie,
but exactly, the look is what you're sold on, not versus the fact that I have built a relationship with her. So now we're having real informal conversation about what this deal looks like, and if it's the best deal for me, because she knows where I've come from. She knows what I believe in, what I want, what my ideals are, versus now that I've hit and I can get some attorney to work on the back end for me, and they're gonna take their 15%, they're gonna do the deal, and that's gonna be that. But we haven't built, and now they're selling themselves to you because now you're the hottest thing on the market. Well, see, I was talking to you and you was nobody. Hey.
Exactly. Not just that, I like the fact that you have your prices out there, your fees out there, you're transparent. So cool, if you have it, hit her up. But if you don't, you know where to start, you know where to save, you know what's available to you. I don't know if there's anything I'm missing, because, oh my God, we have Attorney Hay in here. Y'all just don't know how serious this is.